preached patience, and I know people are tired of hearing me say that. And even I lose my patience when I see the same mistakes being made by the same people. But it isn't going to happen overnight. It just isn't. I mean, everyone thinks now because of what happened with the Commanders last night, if you watch some of what they've done, I mean, they haven't been on the same page. I know that they kicked a ton of field goals last week, of course, but it hasn't been all blue skies and sunshine for them either. But they're not my concern. It's going to take a little bit of time before this quarterback figures out the tendencies of some of these guys.
The difference is, too, between the Commanders and where the Bears are. Like, the Commanders were in year one of a retooling with a new sort of way of doing business. You know, they were in sell mode. They sort of tore it down after Ron Rivera. They're in the process of building it back up. The Bears are supposed to be in go-for-it mode. This is supposed to be year one of the window open.
Right, and they look much more like a team rebuilding than a team that's going.
Yeah, and then that's the problem. And then not only could you be in danger of maybe underachieving record-wise, but if you are not equipped to make your quarterback in the best light to develop, like we all thought. Like, that was the other thing. We all thought that the Bears were the best situation for any rookie quarterback. But when the line is as bad as it is, when it's not supporting Caleb, with the way it's not blocking for the run, with the way it's not protecting, now all of a sudden you could have a great defense, you could have great skill guys, but now all of a sudden you're not in the best position for a rookie quarterback.
By the way, Brian Robinson Jr. is averaging 4.6 yards per carry on 45 carries. Austin Eckler is running for 6.4 yards per carry on 13 carries. And Jaden Daniels has been a huge part of their running game, but their ability to run the football is significantly ahead of where, unfortunately, our team is right now.
All right, let's bring in Greeny. Greeny does great work. You hear him every morning right here, 10 to noon on ESPN 1000. He's got a brand new book, Got Your Answers. It's available everywhere today. We'll get to that in a moment. He's also got a great new gig going. It seems like he's got a new gig every year, doesn't it?
I don't know when he rests.
I don't think he does. He is now hosting ESPN Sunday NFL Countdown. And he said this morning to today, which caught my ear, the last 2 days he's been all over the development of Caleb Williams. And he does not come at this from a Bears hate standpoint, because as he explained on his show today, he wants the Bears to do well. His wife is a diehard Bears fan. She has made the entire family root for the Bears over the years, even though he is a big Jets fan. Today he said the Bears could be in danger of, quote, the most predictable disgrace in recent sports memory, for one reason. And Greeny, as you join us on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotline, I'll let you take it from there. Please explain.
Hi, fellas. Yeah, so let me list my credentials for those who don't remember the 28 years ago that I worked locally in Chicago and covered the Bulls and the Bears and was around every single day. I met and married my wife in Chicago. She was born and raised in Chicago, and because she had to move east with me for my career and we raised our kids in this part of the country, she, I think, who was a person who always envisioned herself living in Chicago all of her life and raising her kids there, it has been very important to her that our kids know and love the Chicago teams in the same way they do the New York teams. And I have been understanding of that because I would feel the same way if we had raised the kids somewhere else. So we love the Bears and we love the Bulls and we pay very close attention in this. So that is where I am coming from that perspective. And I am also just a fan and observer of the sport, and what is happening to me is very evident to see. I said this to you guys at the time. What the Bears have done with Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron is tiptoeing into a really dangerous area. Caleb Williams is ridiculously gifted. You don't have to be Mel Kiper or Field Yates or Tom Waddle to be able to recognize that. He has a magical quality about him. You can see it when he plays. But if there's one thing that is absolutely clear about pro football in 2024, when you watch what Matt LaFleur is doing with Malik Willis, when you watch what Kevin O'Connell is doing with Sam Darnold, when you watch what Arthur Smith is doing with Justin Fields, of all people, and that, of course, is particularly relevant to this conversation, that the value of elite offensive coaching is the most important thing in the sport. So I heard you guys were obviously talking about Jaden Daniels' performance last night, and he's got Cliff Kingsbury there, who I know takes a lot of slings and arrows, but has an offensive system and has a philosophy, and they're going about it, and right now it looks obviously very good. And Caleb, you watch him, it looks frenetic. It looks like he is running for his life all of the time. He does not look anywhere near in command of what is going on around him in the way that Jaden Daniels does, which tells you one of several things is going on, or maybe multiple of several things is going on. One, maybe it wasn't a great idea to anoint him the starter before the draft even took place. Maybe having a bridge quarterback sometimes for players who might not be ready to go immediately is a good idea. Two, let's say that wasn't the problem. Then let's address the offensive line before we add another wide receiver. We were all so excited about the addition of Rome Odunze, but at the end of the day, you can't hit Rome Odunze or Keenan Allen or DJ Moore or anybody else when you're running for your life, which it feels like Caleb is doing all of the time when I watch them. Number three, the biggest concern you have with all of that is that the quarterback starts developing bad habits, the sort of frenetic quality, the exact things that people were questioning about him coming in, which was all of the off script stuff. He seems to be forced into doing. And all of a sudden, what you're seeing, the problems that you're seeing, him being off target and all that, are the opposite of what he was in college. He was ridiculously accurate in college. And all of a sudden, you're seeing him miss on throws. Why? Is it because some things are breaking down because he's concerned about the rush and it's all coming a little too fast for him? These are the things that I would be very worried about if I were a Bears fan right now. And I would add to that if, and this is what I was referring to when I talked about the predictable disaster, if they decide that this year doesn't go the way they want it to, and they fire Matt Eberflus, and they fire Shane Waldron, and this kid has to learn a new offense, a new verbiage, and everything else in the same way that Mitchell Trubisky did, and the same way that Justin Fields did, you are putting him behind the eight ball at the very beginning of his career. It doesn't mean he is ruined. It doesn't mean he can't overcome it, but it is certainly a position no young quarterback would ever want to be in. And this kid is better than either of them. You watch him for 10 minutes, and you can see he is more talented than Trubisky and Fields were combined. But he is not above being ruined, and I am very afraid they are ruining him. And if you look at what Clint Kubiak is doing in New Orleans, you cannot have a coach who is a lame duck in the way that Matt Eberflus is and expect to get an elite offensive coordinator to come in there. These guys aren't walking into situations where they're going to get fired after 1 year and have to move again. So I think you look at the way the Bears ownership and management and leadership handled the situation is eerily and disturbingly similar to what we have seen in recent years, and that's what I was referring to both on television and radio this morning.
I think it's such several great points, Greeny, and I think they're valid despite it being week 3, where I think we would all agree it's really early. But when you have a track record of doing what you just described the Bears have done, your radar goes up quickly. And it also goes up quickly when you've decided to build your team from the outside in as opposed to the inside out. And you are now starting to pay the price for that. You describe what is happening in Minnesota. You describe what's happening in Green Bay. And we haven't even talked about Detroit. Every one of those teams inside their own division has focused more on their offensive line than our team has. So right now, they're paying the price for not being as good as they need to be up front in the run game and in pass protection. And yeah, I'm with you. If it doesn't get cleared up soon and they don't develop an identity to take some pressure off of him, as talented as he is, he's human, and it will have an effect on him.
One would assume it has to. And everything I know about him from afar, you guys are much closer to the situation than I am. Everything I know about him from afar suggests to me it is within him to become a genuinely great player, to become the quarterback that the fans of the Chicago Bears have literally waited all of their lives to see. He's got the makeup, he's got the talent, he's got all of that stuff. But no one is above this stuff that is happening to him. And if you, the things that concern me the most, Tom, are what he is inarguably good at, which is his accuracy, is one of the things that is starting to slip. which suggests that something somewhere else is going wrong. And that's the part of this that worries me the most. And look, here's the other part of this. What was all the conversation coming into the season? Are the Bears going to be a playoff team in his rookie year? Because no number one overall pick has ever walked into a situation this good. Look at all the talent. Look at all the weapons. Look at that improved defense. They weren't the worst team in the league last year, not even close. They got that pick in a trade. It's one of the great trades of all time. Well, a funny thing has happened to Ryan Poles on his way to the Hall of Fame. We forgot that he needed to build an offensive line before he started putting receivers and running backs out there. How much are they paying the running back? And what they can't run the ball at all right
$8 million.
$8 million a year, 3 years, 24.
Well, there you go. And that is another function. I mean, Bill Belichick said it last week on ESPN. And he says things in such a monotone that you don't even realize the magnitude of what he's saying after he says it. But he said it like in such a way that it would sound like an afterthought. But he didn't mean it to be taken that way, and no one should take it that way. He said the Bears' problem is a roster construction problem, and that is the worst problem you can have. Having a roster construction problem where your offensive line is your weakness is quite literally the worst problem to have when you have a rookie quarterback.
And Greeny, it's something that we talked about with you in the offseason, both locally and nationally. And I've always called it the circle of suck, when we don't pair up the new quarterback with the new coaching staff and general manager, and they're always doing it backwards. They let the old regime draft the quarterback, then they fire the old regime. The new guys come in, they don't like that guy as much, and then they have to draft the new guy. And they had the opportunity to pair everyone together. But Poles loved Eberflus so much, he decided to keep him. And this is where your worry is valid, because now what I'm worried about happening is they want this to work so badly it could be lose-lose. So if Eberflus and Waldron continue to fail, like you said on your show, Waldron has to be the absolute worst to fire him at the end of this year. So because they want this to work, because they don't want to pull the rug out from Caleb Williams now. So like what could be, it's like what is worse for him? Is it pulling the rug out from under him and giving him a new coach next year? Or is it doubling down and sticking with a bad head coach and bad offensive coordinator for the second straight year?
Well, let's really hope that Eberflus is not a bad head coach and that Waldron is not a bad offensive coordinator. I will answer your question with a question. How many years does Matt Eberflus have left on his contract?
We don't know for sure because it's never been publicized. We believe he signed a 4-year deal.
I think
and
so,
this is year 3.
Sure.
I would make very public the fact that he's been given a contract extension. I would have done that beforehand, before you hired Shane Waldron, and said, this guy's our coach. We believe in him. There have been some ups, there have been some downs, but we are convicted in this. We are making a commitment to him. He will be our coach. And then you would have had offensive coordinators begging to come take that job because there would have been stability, and all these guys would love the opportunity to coach Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams to a young, rising offensive coordinator equals head coaching opportunity. Look at Clint Kubiak. He's going to be a head coach somewhere next year. Ben Johnson will be a head coach somewhere next year.
They had Kubiak in the building. Yeah. Look, he was one of their candidates. Kingsbury was one of their candidates, and they elected not to hire him. And that's the problem. But Greeny, like when you say you got to hope that Eberflus isn't a bad head coach. Last week, he didn't know whether to go for 1 or 2 after the Bears scored a touchdown, and they burned a timeout in a 1-score game. The week before that on national TV, he challenged 2 plays that were obviously not winnable from a challenge standpoint. These are all responsibilities from a competent head coach that he's proving that he's not.
Well, so, I mean, therein lies your problem. That means that Ryan Poles put his faith in the wrong guy. If Matt Eberflus is not able to become a good head coach, then they absolutely should have made the change last year for all the reasons that we just described and start all over again and line up a head coach, an offensive coordinator, and a rookie quarterback so that they all have one agenda. The most important thing for the Bears right now, nothing else is even close. This is number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4, is making Caleb Williams into a star. so that you can be what the Buffalo Bills are, what the Kansas City Chiefs are, what the Baltimore Ravens are. They're a contender for 15 years. Doesn't mean you're going to win any championships. Allen hasn't, Lamar hasn't, maybe they never will. But you are going to be in it every single year. Caleb Williams is more than good enough to be that guy. Your only responsibility right now is developing him. And if you can't do that, then it is a failure, regardless of how many games you win.
Okay, so you've experienced this Bears thing now for quite some time. If you had to project how the remainder of the season would unfold, what would you say happens?
I think that they have to change. Look, and Tom, this is where I would defer to you, A, as a player, and B, as someone who is watching every snap, which I don't have the luxury of doing. The first and last priority has to be making him comfortable. And if that means making sure that he has a clean pocket, dedicating whatever it is you have to do to that, however many people you have to keep in, however it is you have to adjust what you want to do offensively, to making sure that he is not running for his life all the time and they have some semblance of a running game, they have to do that. Because if you start ingraining bad habits into this young player, you are doing the opposite of what it is that needs to be done. So I would defer to you and your expertise on how one goes about doing that. But, football is an asset allocation kind of game, right? How many people are we going to dedicate to this? How many people are we going to dedicate to this? And it all adds up to something. You got to dedicate as much as it takes to making sure that he is protected and that they have some semblance of a running game. Whatever it is, that has to be job one. And I think that may not always look so pretty, and it may not contribute to winning a lot of games this year. But as I've said, we put the cart in front of the horse. We started talking about it. By we, I mean those of us in the national media. I take the blame. We were having conversations about, can the Bears win 10 games this year? Can they make the playoffs in Caleb's rookie year? Forget that. That can't even be a topic of conversation right now. Job one has to be make sure the young man is comfortable enough to develop at whatever pace is right for him. Because if we don't get him right, then we have gotten everything wrong.
Yeah, I said to Silvy before the break, I said, look, I mean, it's our job to kind of take the wide-angle view of this and look down the road. Up at Hallis Hall, my hope is that they're simplifying things. They're understanding that what they were trying to accomplish early in the season may not be accomplished in terms of having 50 plays on their play sheet come Sunday. You better find a way to have an identity in the running game, and you better find a way to get the most out of the passing game right now to try to get this thing back on the road.
That's exactly right. Look, I'm here to tell you, Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, some people like one, some people like the other going into the draft. What is inarguable is that both of them are infinitely talented enough to become excellent NFL quarterbacks if properly developed. Now, it is 3 games into their rookie seasons, so I can't sit here and tell you that they're going to do a better job in Washington in the long run than we are doing in Chicago. But anyone can see what it looked like last night. The Washington Commanders have just played back-to-back games in which they did not punt. They scored on every possession in consecutive games. It's almost impossible to believe. That one player that works, Jaden Daniels, looks like he is comfortable and in command. Part of that is his experience in college. Part of that might just be in his makeup, but certainly part of it is what they are asking him to do and how they are putting pieces around him. Look at what we have in Chicago. It doesn't look anything like that, and it is definitely not because Jaden Daniels is a better player than Caleb Williams. That is 100% not the case.
Greeny, congratulations again on a couple of different things. First, NFL Countdown, Sunday Countdown. You were telling the story on the air about how you're becoming more familiar with watching these games with the crew in this big room with all the televisions and monitors. Who is the most fun, if that is such a thing, or is everyone focused on the monitors? Is there one guy that we would know is most fun to watch the games with?
So there's a ton of people in there. So the guys that I work with every day are in there, but so are Chris Berman and Booger McFarland, and because they're getting set to do NFL Countdown, and then NFL Primetime, and a bunch of other people who were there to do so Herman Edwards is in there, and just a variety of people. It's so much fun. They bring a bunch of food in there. and we've got games on all these screens. And I'm still having a hard time focusing on anything because someone will shout from one side of the room, and I look up, I'm like, what the hell did I just miss over there? So I'm finding it increasing. I'm getting a little better at it, decreasingly difficult, but still difficult to follow all of the games. But I will say that sitting and watching, as a kid who grew up with ESPN, who grew up dreaming of working at ESPN, to sit with Chris Berman and watch football on a Sunday and hear his voice and hear him talking to everybody. He just holds court. You know, Boomer just sits there and everyone just sort of, he accepts people. You know, he receives people as they come walking into the room. That part of it is a thrill. And Booger McFarland is one of my best friends, so I love sitting and watching with him. But those are really fun Sundays, and I get a level of insight into these games from all these guys that I would never otherwise be able to gain on my own. They just know so much more about the game than I ever will, and I am just learning as much as I can from it.
Greeny, also tell us about your book that's out today.
So the book is called Got Your Answers. So here's basically what it is. You guys know Hembo. So Hembo, who is a Vulcan and is completely devoid of human emotions and has so many negative qualities that it would take an entire book to list them all, has one extraordinary quality, and that he does better sports research than anyone I've ever known. I don't know anyone who does anything better than he does that. So what we did was we decided to try to identify the 100 biggest debates in sports. What are the 100 things people like to argue about the most? And we settle them once and for all, forever and always. Done. You will never lose a barroom argument again for the rest of your life if you read our book, Got Your Answers. It's got the questions range from anything from who is the greatest ever #1 overall pick in any sport. So #1 overall pick in basketball, football, hockey, and baseball. The four combined, we have the top 10, and we choose a #1. Things like what is the most coveted trophy in all of sports? Is it a gold medal? Is it the Stanley Cup? Is it the Green Jacket at Augusta? We have what is the greatest sports movie ever made? And in fact, I had to separate that into two separate categories.
Wow.
Because there's one for comedies and one for dramas, because you really can't compare Caddyshack to Remember the Titans. They don't go together. And there are 100 of those. And Hembo includes 100 sneaky Hembo trivia questions, so you can enjoy those, guess yourself, and stump your friends. So that's what the book is about. And anyone who might be interested in sports debate, sports argument, anyone who likes engaging in that sort of stuff, I think this will be a great opportunity. And it's one of the complaints that we got from our first book was that it was very expensive. So we told the publisher, this book can't be more than $15. So the book is $14.95. So it's a completely different price point. And I think Amazon actually has it discounted a little bit. So it is called Got Your Answers. It should be available anywhere you get books today. And I couldn't be more thrilled and grateful for everybody's support.
All right. So, like, you gave a few of those. You don't want to give too many away, as you were saying on your show today. But, like, for instance, the trophy one, like, that was one that is the Stanley Cup #1, or because you only get one day with it and the others you get to keep for a lifetime? Is that one? Because I always was conditioned to believe the Stanley Cup is the greatest trophy in sports.
Okay. So I will read you the chapter, or a little bit of the chapter. All right, let's start off with a list, because it's the very first thing in the book. I write, let's start off with a list where any of the first three, meaning a gold medal, the Green Jacket, or the Stanley Cup, could easily have been #1. And my own personal choice would be to win the Green Jacket. And the treasured day each member of an NHL championship team gets to spend with the Stanley Cup is unique. However, an Olympic gold medal is forever and can be exhibited however one chooses for the rest of their life. It is the most universally recognizable symbol of athletic greatness anywhere on planet Earth, more than any ring or trophy or article of clothing. Those are the qualities that set it apart and give it the highest podium on this list. So we went Olympic gold medal #1. I'll in fact read you the whole list just so people get an idea of what we have in here. #1 is an Olympic gold medal. #2, the Green Jacket. #3, the Stanley Cup. #4, the Heisman Trophy. #5, the Tour de France yellow jersey. #6, the basketball net cut down from the Final Four. #7, the Kentucky Derby garland of roses. #8, the claret jug, which is the British Open in golf. #9 is the WWE Championship belt, and #10 is a gold glove in baseball.
Wow.
Those are the top 10, with #1 being an Olympic gold medal. That is the very first debate, the first list in the book out of 100.
It's a fun book. It's really good stuff. And congrats on all the success. You continue to amaze us. We appreciate your friendship. And thanks so much,
Get
Greeny.
some rest, will ya? You're working.
That's impossible.
25 hours a day.
I'm still trying to find a little extra time for that. No, thank you, fellas. It's a pleasure to chat again. And Stevie is back my son is back at Northwestern now. We on the trimesters, so he literally started classes today. So somewhere this season, I am going to take a Friday off. I'm going to come out to Chicago and visit him. So maybe I'll come by and see you guys that day. I'd love to try and figure out.
You
how to make
always
that work.
say
So
that. Well, you always say that.
November.
Get over here. All right.
It never wants. I just wind up not coming is the problem.
Yeah.
But this is his senior year, so I have to do it. So we
Okay.
got to figure out a way. I did it one year.
Yes,
one year
you
I
did.
came by the studio and we hung out for a couple hours.
That's
So we'll
true.
try and make that happen.
Doors
again.
always open for you, Greeny.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks,
Take care.
Greeny. There he is.